They didn't even look up when they said it. Ellie scrolled, eyes locked on her phone. Haley lounged sideways across the couch, one bare foot bouncing to some rhythm only she could hear through her earbuds. And then it came. Out of nowhere. Casual. Offhand. A verbal shrug. "He's just the guy who pays for Wi-Fi." They laughed. Not loud. Not cruel. Just dismissive. As if I were a name-brand appliance humming in the background of their lives. I was fixing the cabinet door. Again. Third time this year. A job no one asked me to do, but everyone expected to be done. I had a screwdriver in one hand, sawdust in my lap, and a silence building inside me that I couldn't quite name. I didn't say anything. Didn't make a sound. Just froze, one knee on the tile, listening to my own heart slow down. It wasn't shock. It wasn't even pain, not yet. It was confirmation. That's the word. Confirmation of something I'd been trying not to admit to myself for years. They didn't see me. Not really. I was Marcus, 43, husband of Linda, stepfather to 2 daughters who, once upon a time, used to call me Marky and draw me crayon cards with hearts the size of dinner plates. That was almost a decade ago. Now I was a bank with arms. A voice they ignored unless it came attached to keys or credit. Ellie and Haley were 8 and 10 when I met them. Mike, their father, if we're using the term loosely, had vanished again. He was a myth in their household. A once-a-year postcard ghost who smelled like whiskey and cheap apologies. When Linda introduced me, she said I was just a friend. By that Christmas, I was at the dinner table. By spring, I was repairing the gutters. They needed someone. I stepped in. I didn't try to be Mike. I never tried to replace anyone. I just showed up. Every single day. Through skinned knees, missed periods, friend betrayals, school dances, AP exams, heartbreaks, and first cars. I was there. And they were there too until they weren't. Or maybe they never truly were. There were moments I clung to. Haley falling asleep in the back seat after a recital. Ellie asking me to help her rehearse a presentation she was too nervous to give. Linda smiling at me across the table like she saw something solid in me. Something they could count on. Those moments got fewer. Then they stopped. The shift was slow. Like water under a floorboard. You don't see it at first. You just start feeling the soft spots when you walk. I started noticing things. Ellie posted a picture on Instagram last year. Her and Mike back when she was 6. Caption, "Miss you, Dad. You'll always be the only one who understands me." I stared at that post for a full 5 minutes. I was in the room when it was taken. I was holding the damn camera. Mike had come around for that one weekend, smelling like the bottom of a gas station bottle and rambling about dreams. Then he left again. I stayed. But he got the caption. Haley once asked me for gas money. I handed her a 20. She grabbed it without looking up. No thanks. No glance. Like a vending machine had coughed up what she was owed. There were jokes too. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Mike was the cool ghost. I was the man who said no to an extra streaming service. Linda's silence grew heavier with time. When the girls ignored me, she filled the air with a soft, maternal chuckle. When I disciplined, she softened the blow behind my back. I asked her once why she didn't back me up more. "They're teenagers," she said. "It's a phase. Don't take it personally." But I did. Of course I did. You spend a decade feeding something, housing it, protecting it, and when it opens its mouth, it spits in your food. That night, after the Wi-Fi comment, I told Linda. We were in bed. She was scrolling. I was staring at the ceiling like it could explain something to me. They said I'm just the guy who pays for Wi-Fi. She didn't look up. They're just kids. I turned my head. They're 17 and 19. They're not kids. They're who they're going to be. She blinked as if processing it took real effort, then returned to her screen. I turned out the light. You think the cracks start big. You think betrayal announces itself with a scream. It doesn't. It starts with a shrug. It starts when someone you've bled for refuses to look you in the eye. The next morning, Haley asked for the car keys without saying good morning. Ellie left dishes in the sink again. Linda was quiet. So was I. I started watching the patterns. Started taking notes in my head like some unseen accountant tallying up decades of unpaid respect. Every game night canceled for no reason. Every time they introduced me as Marcus instead of my stepdad. Every time Mike's name came up and Linda smiled like he hadn't walked out on all of us 100 times before. There was a moment, a small one, maybe a month before all this. Haley's tire blew out on the freeway. She called me not her mother. I drove out in the dark, changed it on the shoulder, and got her home safe. She barely said thank you, texted her friend while I packed up the jack. And yet, when Mike sent a text 3 days later, just a string of emojis, she laughed for a solid minute and said, "He's so weird. I miss him." I stood in the hallway listening, like a ghost, like he was alive in the walls and I was the memory. I could feel something coming, not an explosion, a withdrawal. I wasn't hurt, not in the way people mean it. I was eroded. The love I gave didn't evaporate, calcified, hardened into something else. And when that final moment came, those offhand words about the Wi-Fi, I didn't feel rage. I felt a door close inside me, not slammed, just shut, quietly. That's how it begins. Not with screaming, with silence, with a man kneeling in sawdust, realizing he'd been furnishing someone else's life while slowly being removed from the blueprint. I stopped filling the gas tank the same week I unplugged the router. No announcement, no note, just action. They told me who I was. Now I would live accordingly. Started small. The Wi-Fi went out first. Haley texted me, "Wi-Fi down." I left it on read. Ellie came downstairs an hour later, router in her hand, dangling the cord like it had offended her personally. "Did you move the modem?" I was washing dishes. I didn't look at her. "Nope, I removed it." She blinked. "Why?" "I figured the guy who pays for Wi-Fi shouldn't be in the way anymore." She stared. Not in horror, not even in anger. Just confused. Like a pigeon trying to understand a car engine. "That's stupid," she said and turned away. I didn't respond. I dried the plate in my hand and moved on to the next one. They thought I was bluffing. That week, I stopped putting gas in the car. The tank hovered near E for days. Then one morning I saw them at the end of the driveway, standing beside the dead Honda, backpacks slung over their shoulders, thumbs numb from scrolling their phones for rides that wouldn't come. They didn't ask me for help. They didn't even look toward my truck when I backed out and drove right past them. Linda texted later that day, "Did you leave them at the bus stop?" I replied, "Yes." There was no follow-up. Silence became my native language. The groceries ran thinner. The credit cards stopped being replaced when lost. Haley's gym membership lapsed. Ellie's laptop broke, and I didn't offer to look at it. Every little tether I'd maintained out of habit and guilt, I cut it, one at a time, a slow unspooling. No lectures, no yelling, just removal. I watched them scramble, watched their world teeter without realizing who had been balancing the weight beneath them. A week later, Linda found the envelope. It was on the counter in plain sight. Inside, account closures, a list of shared expenses, and a proposed split of responsibilities. I'd paid the mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries. All of it. Now I wasn't going to. We weren't legally married. I never pushed for it. She said it didn't matter, we were already a family. That word, family, like a badge I was supposed to polish without ever earning the title in their eyes. She stood in the kitchen holding the paperwork like it might bite her. "What is this?" she asked. I kept my eyes on my coffee. "A line." "What kind of line?" "The final kind." Her face fell. "You're not serious." "I am." "What the hell, Marcus? You're just gonna drop everything? Leave us stranded?" I looked at her then. Really looked. And what I saw broke something permanent in me. She wasn't confused. She was offended. Offended that the man she had quietly allowed her daughters to disrespect had finally reached his limit. "I'm not leaving," I said. "I'm just letting go." Of what? Of a role I was never allowed to own. That night, I slept in the guest room. 2 days later, Linda told me the girls had called Mike. Their real dad. She said it like it still meant something. He said he can't do much. But he sent them something. I raised an eyebrow. What? A thumbs up emoji. I almost laughed. Almost. Perfect, I said. That was the moment I knew it was over. Not just the financial arrangement. Not just the pretense of partnership. But all of it. The family. The fiction. The home I had held up like a roof over a fire. They were on their own now. I didn't rage. I didn't make a scene. I just went through the house and reclaimed what was mine. The router. My tools. My truck keys. Passwords. Bank accounts. Furniture I had brought into the marriage that somehow became ours until now. I didn't take everything. Just enough to redraw the map of my presence. Linda didn't fight me on it. She just watched. Pale. Quiet. Like a witness at a funeral who suddenly realizes they're the one in the casket. The girls didn't say a word. Not to me. Not yet. But I could feel it coming. The collapse. When the car finally stalled for good, they called her from the side of the road. I know because I heard Linda yelling upstairs. Then crying. Then silence again. That weekend, Ellie tried to connect her laptop to the neighbor's Wi-Fi. She asked me for the password. I didn't even turn around. Just sipped my coffee and stared out the window. They were starting to understand. Not the depth of what they had done. Not yet. But the cost. The real cost. It was never about money. It was about respect. And they'd spent all of it. Now they were bankrupt. Linda cornered me in the hallway 2 nights later. Her voice low, clipped, like she was trying to be strong and not fall apart. You can't just pull the plug on everything. I didn't pull it, I said. I stopped supplying the current. They're your family, Marcus. No, they're not. They made that clear. You're being cruel. No, Linda. I'm being consistent. She flinched at that, because she knew. Deep down, she knew this had been coming. She'd seen the cracks and decided they weren't her responsibility to fill. I told her what I hadn't dared say for years. I loved you. I loved them. I gave everything. And you let them treat me like a stranger in my own home. You let them rewrite me as a footnote. I gave them more than Mike ever did, and still you held the door open for his ghost. She didn't reply, just stood there, breathing through her teeth. I left the house 2 weeks later. Got a 1-bedroom outside Denver. Quiet. Clean. No framed photos on the wall. No reminders of birthdays I paid for or graduations I funded. Just silence. And peace. I didn't leave out of spite. I left because the only thing worse than being unwanted is staying anyway. They called. Eventually. Linda first. Then Ellie. Then Haley. Not to apologize. Just to ask for things. Money. Advice. Help with taxes. Car trouble. Rent. I didn't answer. Not once. The only thing I sent back was a single text 3 words long. Call your dad. He never responded either. Let them feel that silence now. Let it teach them what my words never could. That behind every act of giving is a person. A man with limits. A man who bleeds when cut enough times. And they'd cut me too many. You don't notice what someone does for you until they stop doing it. That's the first law of absence. And in that house, my absence was starting to howl. Ellie didn't get her phone upgraded in December. Haley had to cancel her hair appointment. The Amazon packages stopped arriving. The pantry didn't refill on its own. The fridge looked emptier every week. The gas tank stayed low. The clothes dryer broke, and no one came to fix it. I watched from a distance, sometimes literally from my truck, parked a few houses down the block. They didn't see me. They never looked up anymore. Not for me. Not for anything. Linda started to crack first. Her emails changed tone. At first they were cold, clipped. We need to talk. Then they softened. Can we at least discuss how to divide things fairly? Then came the plea. The girls are struggling. We weren't prepared for this. I didn't answer the first one. I forwarded the second to my lawyer. I read the third and deleted it. Fair? Fair would have been her stopping them when they called me a stranger in my own home. Fair would have been her telling Ellie, who actually paid for her textbooks, and Haley, who funded every dance costume, every doctor's visit, every late-night ice cream run that made her feel seen. They wanted fairness now that the ground was cracking beneath them. I had been the cement under their feet. Now I was gone. 2 months into the silence, I got a voicemail from Ellie. Her voice was tight, strained, practiced. "Hey, it's me. Just wanted to check in. I know things have been weird, but I was wondering if you could maybe help me figure out this FAFSA stuff? Mom doesn't really know how to do it and, yeah, I thought of you." She paused, long enough to let that last sentence breathe. I deleted it. She thought of me. After a decade of not seeing me, she thought of me. Like a convenience. A tool. A service that used to be free and now came with a silence she didn't know how to break. Haley tried next. A text. "I know things are tense, but can I borrow your truck to move some stuff?" No greeting. No apology. No acknowledgement. I didn't reply. I read it. I let it sit for an hour. Then I turned off my phone and went for a walk. It was snowing. The kind of snow that deadens sound. Makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. That's what I wanted. Stillness. A break from the noise of people who only remembered me when the engine stopped turning over. They tried calling Mike again. Of course they did. Linda told me in a voicemail. Said the girls were desperate. That Ellie cried when her application for an internship got rejected because she couldn't afford to travel for the interview. That Haley's part-time job didn't cover her car insurance, let alone tuition. I listened to the message all the way through. Then I sat in the dark with it echoing in my ears. Let it echo. They called Mike. He sent another emoji. This time it was a shrug. Perfect. A real father who could summon only symbols. And they'd still rather wait for his thumbs to move than look me in the eye and say, "I was wrong." I stopped expecting them to get it. I think that was the real turning point. Not the leaving. Not the silence. But the moment I accepted that understanding might never come, and I could still be free without it. They started reaching out more. Ellie wrote a longer message. One of those texts where you can tell they drafted it 4 times before hitting send. "I know I said some things I didn't mean. I was stupid. I didn't realize how much you did for us. I miss how things used to be. Can we talk?" Haley sent a photo. A picture of an old family board game night. Me sitting cross-legged on the floor, making a goofy face while she and Ellie leaned into me, laughing. She captioned it, "Found this today. Didn't know I'd miss it so much." I looked at that photo for a long time. I remembered the night. I remembered the popcorn bowl that spilled halfway through the game. I remembered Ellie cheating at Monopoly and Haley accusing her of being a capitalist. I remembered Linda smiling from the kitchen, saying, "You 3 are chaos." I remembered thinking, this is it. This is the life I built. And now it was a relic. A **T of a man who gave too much and asked for too little. Linda emailed again. This time with a subject line that just read, "I'm sorry." I opened it. She talked about the years, the holidays, the weight of everything I carried. She said she didn't realize how much I propped them up until I was no longer there to bear the load. She wrote, "I didn't defend you. I see that now. I should have stood up to them. I should have reminded them who showed up when their real father didn't." Then, at the end, "I miss you. Not just what you did for us. You, the man who kept us whole. I miss your silence. Your steadiness. Your heart." I didn't reply, because hearts don't beat in houses where silence was mistaken for weakness. They beat louder when they're finally alone. And mine was thudding again. Stronger, slower, wiser. I had started dating. Quietly. A woman from work. No kids. No ghosts. She asked me once if I ever wanted to have children of my own. I hesitated, then said, "Maybe, someday, if I'm building from the ground up." She smiled like she understood. Like she'd seen the cracks in her own life and decided never again to pour herself into someone else's foundation. We went hiking. We read in silence. We didn't talk about the past much. Just breathed. I started painting again. Something I hadn't done since college. Landscapes, mostly. Colorado woods. Lonely cabins. Quiet skies. There was peace in the brush, in creating something that expected nothing from me. And slowly, I began to realize something cruel and liberating. They needed me. They always had. But they'd been taught, by Mike's absence and Linda's passivity, that needing someone didn't mean respecting them. And that's the lie so many of us live with. We think being needed is enough. It's not. A servant is needed. A slave is needed. A doormat is needed. But none of them are loved. None of them are seen. Respect is the currency. And mine had been spent without permission over and over. So when they tried to buy me back with soft words and old photos, I didn't sell. Because that price was no longer on the shelf. I had taken it with me when I walked out the door. Ellie left one more voicemail. Her voice was raw. Honest. I get it now. I didn't before, but I do now. You were there. You never had to be. But you were. And I treated you like a vending machine. I'm sorry. Not for the FAFSA. Not for the truck. For all of it. For the years. For pretending you didn't matter. You did. You still do. I saved that one. Not to respond to. Just to hear it again when the old ache returns. Because even if healing doesn't come with a reunion, it still counts. Even if they never fully understand the damage, the scar is still proof I lived through it. I'm not the man who paid for Wi-Fi anymore. I'm the man who left when his silence was mistaken for compliance. And that man finally knows the price of staying. Now I live alone. 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Denver. Nothing fancy. Clean walls, quiet neighbors, west-facing windows that catch the sun just before it dies behind the mountains. I painted the 2nd bedroom gray and left it empty. People ask if it's an office. I say it's a space I'm still deciding on. Truth is, I like it bare. Like a wound that finally closed. No photos on the fridge. No holiday magnets. No reminders. The couch is mine. The bed is mine. Every fork, every plate, every towel folded just the way I like it. And for the first time in over a decade, I don't feel like I have to prove I belong somewhere. I make dinner in silence. Not out of sadness, but choice. I turn on music when I want it. I eat when I'm hungry. No one asks me what's for dinner. No one leaves dishes in the sink for 3 days and then blames someone else. No one asks for gas money while telling me I'm not part of the family. Peace is not loud. It's not even warm. It's neutral. Like standing outside after a storm and realizing nothing's left to fix. That's where I live now. Linda sent a letter. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter. Ink on paper. Torn envelope. Postmarked 3 days before I found it in my mailbox. She started with my name. Not hey. Not hi. Just Marcus. She wrote about the girls. Said Ellie was struggling in college. Said Haley moved back home. Couldn't afford rent. Tried to get a second job but her hours kept getting cut. Said the house was too quiet. Said everything was harder now. She didn't ask for help. She didn't even ask me to come back. She just said, I miss who we were before we let silence rot the floorboards. That line stayed with me. Because she was right. We let it rot. All of us. I let things slide when I should have spoken. She let things pass when she should have intervened. And the girls, they learned exactly what we taught them. That love could be conditional, that silence was a form of survival, and that someone always pays the bills even if you never say thank you. They didn't become cruel by accident. They became entitled by design. A design we all signed off on. Still doesn't excuse it. Just explains it. I thought about writing her back. I even bought a card. Blank inside. I kept it on my desk for weeks. Never touched it. Because in the end, what is there left to say? That I tried? That I gave everything? That I hoped one day they'd see me not as a wallet or a threat or a filler, but as a man who stayed when everyone else left. They know that already. They just don't say it. Or maybe they can't. Maybe regret is as close as they'll ever come to recognition. And I've made my peace with that. The woman I've been seeing, her name is Sarah, asks me sometimes what I want out of the future. I tell her the truth. Not a family. Not again. Not someone else's unfinished story. I want truth. I want a table where every chair has a name, not just a debt. I want to be known, not just needed. She nods like she understands. And she does. She's lived her own version of it. Different house, different ghosts. Same silence. We go slow. We cook together. We don't talk over each other. And when we disagree, we don't raise our voices, we ask questions. I didn't know a relationship could be that quiet and still feel full. I thought conflict meant passion. Turns out peace is the real miracle. The last time I saw Haley, it was by accident. Grocery store parking lot. Cold day. She was hunched over her trunk, struggling with a bag of rock salt. Her hair was longer. She looked thinner, tired. She didn't see me at first. I stood beside my truck for a moment, unsure. Then she looked up. Our eyes met, just for a second. Her mouth opened like she might say something, but she didn't. She looked down, slammed the trunk, and drove away. I didn't follow, didn't wave, didn't need to. That was enough. A flash of recognition. Not guilt, not anger, just the silent echo of what we used to be. I drove home without the radio on. In that silence, I remembered the first time she called me Dad. She was 9, skinned her knee on the sidewalk, came limping in, crying. I cleaned the wound, stuck on a Band-Aid. She wrapped her arms around me and said it, just once. Thanks, Dad. That moment carried me for years, long after the words stopped coming. I don't chase that memory anymore. Don't resent it either. It was real, even if it didn't last. Sometimes love is seasonal. Sometimes we're not meant to stay. Sometimes we're just the scaffolding that holds a structure until it can stand on its own. And sometimes it never stands. And you leave anyway. The hardest part wasn't being rejected. It was realizing I had stayed too long after the rejection began. Like a guest who doesn't realize the party ended hours ago. So I ask myself now, whenever I feel the itch to fix someone, to step in, to fill a hole, am I wanted here, or just useful? If the answer is the second, I don't stay. And I won't apologize for that. Because the man who stays without respect becomes a ghost long before he leaves. I was that ghost for years. Now I'm a man again. Whole, quiet, unbent. I don't tell this story for pity. I tell it for every man who's been made to feel like a stranger in his own life. For every stepfather who stayed, who gave, who endured, only to be told, "You're not my real dad," only to be asked for more after being told he's worth nothing, only to realize that presence isn't always enough. So I leave you with this. Was I wrong to walk away? To unplug the router, to close the accounts, to disappear from the lives of people who only remembered me when they needed something? Or was that the first act of self-respect I'd shown in years? You tell me, would you have stayed? Would you have kept feeding mouths that never spoke your name with love? Would you have let your silence become permission? Or would you have finally stood up and said, enough? Because sometimes love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go. And walking away not out of anger but clarity. That's what I did. And I don't regret it. Not anymore.